Now then, one heck of a coup for Britain's National Crime Agency, which says it's just brought down a huge Russian money laundering network, which also helped the Kremlin to spy. The network, run by a Russian businesswoman, is claimed to have allowed super-rich Russians, gangs, and even the broadcaster Russia Today to shift dirty money into property and cryptocurrency. Apparently, 84 arrests have now been made, and it's the NCA's biggest money laundering case for a decade. I'm joined now by Oliver Bullough, a writer who specialises in financial crime and indeed the role of London in it, with books like Moneyland and Butler to the World. Responding to the suggestion that Elon Musk might give Reform UK $100 million, he has also warned this week of the danger to British democracy of it being swamped by dark money. Oliver, thanks for joining me this evening. Can I start with the NCA cybercrime story, an absolutely astonishing story? Were you surprised by the scale and the number of people involved in this network? This Russian network operating inside the UK today. I mean, you've written in the past about the years when it was Londongrad and Moscow on Thames, but today, really?
I wasn't surprised to hear that this kind of thing was going on. This form of money laundering, when drug gangs basically buy cryptocurrency with cash, and then they manage to pay for their drugs from South America or wherever by moving crypto to the gangs in Colombia. That's been happening for a little while. I think it's a huge credit to the National Crime Agency. You said it's the biggest bust they've had in a decade. I think it's possibly the biggest ever. Certainly in this iteration of the NCA, they've come in for a lot of stick for being ineffective, not least from me. And so, this is a real coup for them. They've done a lot of good work in cooperation with colleagues in the US and France, Ireland, and elsewhere. But it does show how the financial criminals have managed to circumvent the sanctions put in place against them by using both very old forms of money laundering, by using cash, but also new forms, by using these stable coins, these form of cryptocurrency, particularly Tether, which is able to get around the restrictions put in place. And it's been used, as you said, by super-rich Russians, by RT, the Russian propaganda wing, also it seems perhaps by Russian espionage agencies. It's really, really worrying, this essentially an alliance of convenience between Russian kleptocrats and spies and European and British drugs gangs.
I guess the thing that struck me was this political connection, because again, I can remember talking to you some way back in the old days about the connection between the Kremlin and these networks of dirty money, in the days when Putin was still connected to quite a lot of the oligarchs working in the West. And I hadn't realised that this political connection was still there. In other words, that this is not just about crime, this is also about the state power of Russia at a time when it really wants to destabilise us.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky now for both oligarchs and the Kremlin to access the old tools of money moving they used to use. They used to just use ordinary banks. The sanctions imposed by the European Union, the US and the UK and other countries have been really extensive. More sanctions have been added just in the last month, which have been, cutting the Russian economy off even further from the West. And they've been, they still want to buy things. They still want to, influence the West if they can. So they've been looking for new channels. And this is what they've found. And it is, I said it was to the credit of the National Crime Agency for doing this, and it is. It's a huge operation. But let's not kid ourselves. This is just one of many gangs of this nature.
There'll be other networks out there operating right now doing much the same thing, you think?
Absolutely. The amount of cocaine in particular, but other drugs too, which are being sold in Britain and other European countries, is generating a colossal volume of cash. That cash is going somewhere. These gangs were able to launder it very effectively. Essentially, one of the National Crime Agency officers compared this to me for being like Western Union for criminals. It's very convenient, very quick, and it's very cheap.
And do you think that London in particular and Britain in general is still seen as a bit of a soft touch for money laundering?
Well, it is a soft touch. That's undoubtedly the case. We have got much better at tackling the Russian elites, mainly because of the sanctions imposed since February 2022. But, Russian criminals that's only one country's worth of criminals. It's a big country, but not the only one. We are still wide open to money laundering from Chinese gangs, from money out of the Middle East. There is a huge problem in this city. And though the National Crime Agency has been scaling up, they are still a very, very lot too small to really deal with the scale of the challenge they're up against.
Oliver, I noticed you writing in The Guardian as well, following the Elon Musk story, the $100 million going to reform UK or not going to reform UK, because we don't know yet. This is a rumour, no more than that at the moment. But I guess a sort of line in your writing all along has been the danger to democracy of dark money, money that's coming from we know not quite where. In this case, we know where it's coming from, if it comes. But explain to us why you're so concerned about this particular donation.
Well, I think a lot of, British politics, the British economy is run on a kind of good chap principle. We all know that we're all good chaps and no one will do anything too terrible because that would be bad. It's been very under strain for a long time. And we see what money does to politics just by looking at the United States. The amount of money being spent, in the US election. I mean, I was looking at, I think just Pennsylvania was $600 million. That's substantially more than all of the British parties have spent in, the last two elections added together. Huge quantities of cash in just one state. For someone like Elon Musk or another billionaire who likes playing around in American politics, if they decided to mess about in British politics, I said in the article it would be like a Premier League owner messing around at the bottom of the football pyramid. You could own the whole competition. It's so much money. And British laws around electoral donations are very out of date. They are very clunky. It's very easy to circumvent them with some very basic tools. And we need to be very careful because, once trust in politics has gone, it's gone. And once something has become corrupted, it's very, very hard, if not impossible, to uncorrupt it again. So some quick changes now would be very, very welcome in defending our political system from this. And it was in the Labour Party's manifesto. They need to show more.
They need to pull their fingers out about this. I completely agree with that because, of course, this is one individual. We know about Elon Musk pretty well. We know that he's obsessed by British politics at the moment. But it could be anybody. I mean, it could be Russian money. It could be Saudi money. It could be Chinese money, and has been in some cases in the past. So once our democracy is up for sale to outsiders, we have really lost the thing that we prize or prized most.
Absolutely. I mean, having a clean, essentially responsive political system is the foundation for everything that we have. Once that goes, then everything else falls apart. So they're not big changes. We just need to make sure that we can't use companies to make political donations, that the amount of political donations are capped. They're just small things that could be done very quickly, very easily. They wouldn't be controversial. And the government should get on with it.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if in the next half an hour your phone rang and it was a government minister asking for more details and some help? Oliver, thank you very much. You've been a great help to us.